Mic. Camera. Action.
What I do requires a certain mindset. Revenge is an emotion that can get you killed, so no more stupid stunts like the other night. Walk it, feed it, make it your best friend. Tomorrow, 11 Fisher Square.
She told me now. I see you talking to a
Take the dog to the coffee shop in Riverdale. Order a coffee, black. Sit at a table by the window and do the Sudoku puzzle in the paper. Play nice with the dog. For how long? 1 hour. Every day for the next 3 weeks.
Baby, don't you know when you come on by, I ain't gonna be
Practice on this. Insurance companies know everything about how people die. They even have books with actuaries. Lists of every cause of death imaginable.
Why don't you just shoot him and fuck all this?
Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment.
Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. To show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. Yeah, we want a montage.
Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the focused filmography, and consider how it ranks amidst their career, and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. For episode 24, I'm joined by the debuting Stath Super-fan Glyn to discuss the 24th big screen appearance of the Stath in Simon West's remake of the other Michael Winner-Charles Bronson team-up, The Mechanic. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. So, Glyn, thank you so much for lending your expertise in all things Stath to the show to discuss his fourth now film remake.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I mean, I don't know about the expert side, but I'll certainly put my money's worth in about the Stath. I do love all of his movies, to be honest. What were the other Michael Winner team-ups? Was it Is Killer Elite one of them?
No. So the Michael Winner and Charles Bronson for Death Wish.
Ah, right, yeah.
Original Death Wish. But no, you're right. I will talk about the other Stath remakes at some point. See if I can get you to guess. I know your quiz credentials. I know your Stath credentials. So I'm going to combine those two things together and see if I can get you to, off the top of your head, list off all the remakes to this point in his career that he's been involved with.
What now?
Oh, you can go for it. Why not? Why not? We're here. Go for it now. Go on. So this is the fourth. 3 that come before this.
Jesus, I can't even think of that many of his earlier films. Was Transporter, is that a remake of something?
I'm afraid not. No, that was an original script.
Just trying to think of his movies prior to this. No, you're going to have to tell me.
So his first was Mean Machine.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yeah.
Remake of The Longest Yard. Then The Italian Job. And then Death
Yeah,
Race.
I would have known that. Wow, I'm so stupid. Yeah, I would have known those three were a remake as well.
Yeah, I know,
Apologies, I'm looking back to my quizzes now.
Yeah, this is the thing of being put on the spot, though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
At least everyone knows it was genuine now. There was no setup there. I really did throw you under the bus and try and catch you out.
Yes, she really did.
But we'll be speaking about buses again later as well, because there's a wicked scene in this movie on a bus.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, really good scene.
Before we get there, so in my intro, I consider you a Stath Super-fan. From all our interactions, this is the first time we've like spoken like face to face, but from all our interactions over social media, I can tell that you're a big fan. What is it about him that draws you to his movies? That why is it you seek them out or you repeatedly watch them? What is it about the Stath?
I just really enjoy watching him. I mean, I've always liked action films from the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme, Stallone, and Arnie. I've always watched all of them growing up. So he's sort of a modern day version of them, I suppose. He's keeping the genre going. He's even in lots of movies with them. So I think that is the draw because I still watch the 80s movies now, as bad as they are and as terribly made as they are. They're still enjoyable and they're still just throwaway and just enjoy them for no reason other than there's just gratuitous violence and most of the time terrible script. So yeah, I think that's why I love him.
I think that's totally fair. I mean, all of that's fair. When we look back with nostalgia, but we've got to be realistic about what it is that we like about them. And yeah, some of them, even the ones that we revere, Commando is an amazing movie. There's no doubt about it. But there's holes that you can pick in it, isn't there? But you're right, Stath really is like the genuine. There's not many other people I can think of that is an action star, as you put it, like those old school names you mentioned, but also is kind of a bona fide movie star as well. There's not many people who he is the Stath. We turn up to watch the Stath, and we're happy to do that. Like we would have turned up to watch Arnie, or going back, we would have turned up to watch Clint Eastwood, or we would have turned up to watch Steve McQueen. There's not really anybody else like him, is there?
No, I mean 90% of the time you know what you're turning up to when you go and watch it, but then he does put out films like The Bank Job, which was a really, really good film that's not just violence. And then obviously there's his earlier work, which is Lock, Stock, which isn't really an action film, but it's such a good film, and it put him on the map, so to speak, as an actor, because he was just found modeling or something, wasn't he? I can't remember, something crazy like that, and then he just got catapulted into stardom.
Yeah, I think he was a street seller, like a market seller, like he is at the start of Lock Stock. That's where Guy Ritchie came across him. Yeah, but
Oh,
you're
that's
right.
right, yeah.
Yeah, he had been a model and obviously been the diver and things. So
And you brought to my attention that amazing dance video as well.
I'm glad. Yeah. What I need to start doing actually, there's some really good adverts that he's appeared in. I need to start putting some of those out there on social media as well. I don't know how many of those you've seen, but I keep going down wormholes and discovering these random. He did some Kit Kat ones for a while, some other ones which are quite funny too. So I need to start putting them out there.
Oh wow, that would be cool. I've not heard of any of them. So there's even talk of him taking over Stallone from the Expendables now, isn't there? He's going to carry on the franchise.
Yeah, rumors are, aren't they, with Stallone being the and that he might not
Yeah,
make it to if there is an Expendables 5. So it makes sense, doesn't it? Like he is the natural inheritor.
it definitely. I mean, Stallone's great, but he is 70 odd, and he's got to hang it up eventually because nobody wants to see an 80-year-old man running around killing people. So
Yeah. And actually, let's talk about it right here. This script at one point, this remake script was being bandied about like, oh, can we get Stallone? Can we get Stallone? So it's really interesting that obviously the film before was Stallone handpicking Stath to be with him and be his right hand man and be his second in command for the Expendables. And then at a similar time, this script's being Stallone's been thought about, but actually ultimately it ends up in the hands of the Stath.
yeah, I mean, I in the research I've been doing, he was down for the lead and for the director at one point, and also weirdly enough, Michael Douglas was the original choice for this as well.
Which I suppose, can I see him in it? I don't know.
And I don't think at that age, at the age he is, he would have been then. I don't think he could have seen him in it. He could have done it maybe back in the day, but
Mm. Yeah, I was just about to say, like, had it been like 80s Michael Douglas, then maybe. But this era, he's sort of, unless they were going to go for that angle, right? Because he is meant to be a mentor, isn't he? He's meant to be a more seasoned professional in what he's doing. So they could have really pushed that angle, couldn't they?
Yeah, yeah, they could have, because I did think that he's sort of teaching other people because he's been in the game that long, and looking at the house he lives in, he's definitely been doing it for a while.
Yeah, it's clearly a lucrative business, right? You and I are doing the wrong thing in our professional lives.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've got things. I mean, I love the opening to the film just because it's straight into the assassinations. But
Mm.
I was a bodyguard in Saudi Arabia for a while, so I mean, I've got plenty of things to pick at that. So
Oh,
whenever
wow.
we
Okay.
start talking about film, I've looked into stuff like that. So
Yeah, definitely. Would love to hear those stories for sure. How many of so I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway because it's the first time you're on it. It's that kind of I don't know if you listen to Tony on Indie Comic Spotlight. Whenever he has anybody on for the first time, he always asks them like, "What's your comic journey and how did you end up here?" We've done part of that with obviously your fandom with the Stath, but to finish off that conversation, how many of his what is now 44 films do you reckon you've seen?
right, well, I actively watch anything he's in as soon as he comes out now,
Yeah.
but uh, I haven't watched. I've only watched Revolver once. Don't really remember it, and remembered not either getting it or not liking it at the time. But that would have been maybe 10, 15 years ago when I watched that. I and there is two I've not seen. I think there's Ghosts of Mars. I haven't watched that yet, but I've been meaning to. And then there's also the 13 that you discussed last week that I've not seen, but I've seen everything else that he's been in.
Yeah. So I mean, to call you a Stath superfan, I think is a fair statement that you have seen what 98% of his career is a pretty impressive stat.
I'd say most of them I've seen. I don't think there's any I've only watched once. I wouldn't have said.
Mm. Other than Revolver, which probably nobody really needs to see more than once.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just because it's Guy Ritchie, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I like Guy Ritchie, I watched it, but then it didn't really come across as a Guy Ritchie film, so I didn't really get it at the time. But I might have been too young to get it at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean when I went back to it, I watched that alongside with my sister originally, and then obviously we then watched it for the coverage of the show as well. I guess, when you go back to watch a film, you do have preconceptions, but I still try to be open-minded as best I can be. And it really, I came out the other end still feeling the same as I did after that first watch, and that was only the second ever watch for me as well.
Right? Was it you? Was it you two that were berating Operation Fortune? Somebody didn't like Operation Fortune last week, did they?
No, that
Or was I
wasn't. No,
listening?
that must have been a different show.
Oh, was it right? Because I thought Operation Fortune was decent, but I was listening to something recently and they weren't really a fan of it. But
No, yeah, I found it good fun. I thought it was, obviously we'll get there and we'll cover it in about 10 months' time, I think. But no, yeah, I thought it was perfectly good fun and actually skewed on the right side of what I sometimes find difficult with Guy Ritchie is smugness.
yeah, like he certainly wants everyone to know that he did everything in the movie because it's called Guy Ritchie's this and Guy Ritchie's that. Because I mean, I recently watched The Covenant and I thought it was an unbelievably great film based on a true story. But I mean, he's not really done much apart from just change a true story to a movie. That's it. So he shouldn't really get that much credit when the story already exists.
Yeah, that's interesting. And actually links into obviously you won't have heard it yet, but the Expendables show we did, I, like I've just quizzed you, I quizzed Max about how many times Stallone got his name in the opening credits. And it's exactly that, gentlemen. It's like a film by the director is starring. It's like he just kept getting his name in so many times. There's probably about 20 names, and he's, a fifth of the names that managed to come up in those credits.
Yeah. But like aside from that, Guy Ritchie, it's actually called Guy Ritchie's this and that. A lot of the time, it's like he's written and directed it and produced it, but he also has to make sure it's his film as well.
It's true. So before you went back into watching The Mechanic. You've watched it quite a few times before. What was your what were your thoughts? Were you like excited about watching it again? Was it getting back into like a comfy pair of pajamas? Where were you at when you started watching it again?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of actors that I enjoy watching over and over again, and Statham, I can always, if I can't think of anything to watch, I can always just throw one of his movies on. I mean, Safe is a favourite of mine. Killer Elite is a favourite of mine. And then Mark Wahlberg's another one that I can watch. His action films, not so much the films where he's trying too hard to be an actor, but his action films I really, really enjoy and can sort of watch anytime, Mark Wahlberg.
That's
But I
interesting.
was
Okay.
excited to watch The Mechanic because it's been a while. It's
Mhm.
probably been 5 or 6 years since I've seen it.
Sure. And that's nice. I'm glad that the first time we're connecting is you've got that sense of, I only watched that last week. I'm glad that you were excited to get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, as many times as I've seen it, I wouldn't have wanted to come into this with just what I could remember from all that time ago. So I definitely wanted to revisit it before coming on.
Mm. And as you said, it opens strong. Like the opening of the movie is good.
Oh yeah, definitely. Starting with an assassination straight away to show you the sort of person he is, and to show you from the outset that it's always meant to look like an accident. It was definitely sort of setting the scene straight away for you.
And it's a genuine, I mean, you and I, we've seen this before. We know what the concept is anyway, even if you just watched a trailer, even if you're not coming in with the prior knowledge of watching the movie, but it still got me. Like it's a really effective jump scare when he suddenly bursts out from the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think I did. I had to have it relatively low in volume just because I get up in the mornings to watch movies when everyone else is asleep. But I definitely still did jump when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? So the guy he's been assigned to do the hit on is doing his laps in the pool, isn't he? Up and down. And he notices something glinting at the bottom. So he swims down, doesn't he? And there Statham's like camouflaged himself. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a watch, isn't it? It's like a designer watch. It's at the bottom of the pool, but
Mm.
I didn't remember that scene at all because there's a swimming pool scene in the second one, isn't there? And I think I was only remembering that one.
Yeah, that's true, because it's the famously like on the poster and stuff, isn't it, in the second one? So I guess it
Yeah.
does stick in the memory a bit more. Have you seen the original, the 70s original?
No, I only realised there was an original tonight when I was having a little bit of a look
Mm.
around. I mean, I've seen Charles Bronson's films, but not an awful lot of them. My mum was a massive fan, so I may have caught the ends of them when I was little and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would recommend it if, I'm sure you probably, just like everyone else, your list of things you want to watch or rewatch is massively long, but it is worth tuning into, mostly for the opening sort of 10-15 minutes, which are brilliant in the 70s version, where it's almost dialogue free, and it's
Right.
the intricate nature of him planning the opening assassination, and it's him doing, all the little bits which add up to it. So it's really interesting from that perspective to think about it compared to this, because it really shows that change in filmmaking, where in the 70s one, it's that slow pace, it's, gradual, it's character development. Whereas here, and depending on your taste, I suppose, not for better or worse, it's fast paced, it's zippy, it's straight in, and we're off at the races.
Right. They're not like for like, I'm assuming. Are they completely different kills and movies or
Yeah, kills and stuff are completely different. The plot, the overarching plot, where he is this killer for hire, they're supposed to look like accidents. That's the same. The taking on the young apprentice is the same. The apprentice being the son of I don't know what's called, like business partner. I don't know what you call him, like the fellow assassin, the friend, like his mentor, I suppose, isn't it? That being the
right?
son is the same. So yeah, the plot beats follow, but as you'd imagine, stylistically, and yeah, as you said, like the actual hits are very different.
Right. I will try and check it out, but yeah, I do have a quite an extensive list of movies I want to see. So
Of course, of course. And it's another person, isn't it, really? Like Jason Statham, you said it before, like Charles Bronson, you can see him being like a kind of another person in that line of like natural, the natural inheritor, like Charles Bronson is one of these kind of stoic, masculine action heroes. You can see that again, that's another person which you can see the development, can't you? You can see the arc from where these actors were to where we've got to with the Stath too.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he was obviously an action hero of his era. He never really made any other types of films that I'm aware of, and he just sort of handed the mantle down to the likes of Stallone and Arnie. They may have even watched his films and made themselves get into it because of that. I've never looked into that sort of side of things.
But it feels like the right script and the right role for the Stath.
Yes, definitely. I mean, this definitely any sort of movie where he's an assassin or he's a gun for hire. I definitely think that sort of suits his characteristics.
And I feel like this is quite a different performance from him within a genre that he's already well trodden by now, and will go on. This next period for me is going to be really interesting. I think it's a period where he is perhaps falling into a natural rhythm, perhaps taking scripts which people will like or won't like to varying degrees, but the variety that we've had at times previously, and we will get later, goes away a little bit for the next kind of 5, 6, 7 years. But I think his performance here is actually quite different to what we've seen before. I find him to be a very still character in this. And he does a lot with his face where you really feel like you can see his mind whirring, you can see him calculating things out. He feels quite predatory in this movie, I think. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, he's just trying to every movie he's doing at this point in time. He's just trying to better himself, get more and more work, and then he's turned into now he's in the Meg and stuff. I mean, I enjoy the Meg films, but they're he's obviously there just getting money for nothing because he's not putting his all into those movies. As enjoyable as they are, you just got to sort of leave any grasp of reality at home when you go and watch those movies. But I still really enjoy them. It was the VHS Strikes Back that was slagging off Operation Fortune. I think it's their latest episode on the Meg. So,
Okay.
no, sorry, it was the MovieDrone podcast that did the Meg 2. I've just recently listened to that one.
I was going to say Meg 2 is way too modern for VHS, isn't it? Because I know they did Deep Blue Sea recently.
Yeah, that's the first Blu-ray I ever bought.
Nice. Good start.
Yeah.
And I bet that's got quite a few watches since it's been bought too.
I know. Do you know what? I need to revisit it because I remember it being pretty decent. It's aged now, but I do remember it being pretty decent.
Mm.
I was on about watching it with my kids the other night because it's not too bad that they couldn't watch it. I don't think my older kids.
Yeah. I think because of the cartoony nature, you accept that a bit like the Meg, really, isn't it? Like it's very different to watching Jaws, which feels real and scary and dangerous. Deep Blue Sea and the Meg, you understand it's just a live action cartoon, really.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy because the things that we were allowed to watch when we were kids and we would never let our children watch stuff like that now. It's insane, really.
It's definitely true. Yeah. I don't know. I guess we all had our own different ways of doing it, but mine was all about the TV video combi sets when they came out, and I had that in my room.
Oh yeah.
You could record whatever you wanted off TV at that point. So that got absolutely hammered, and nobody could check in on what I was recording.
I had a brother who was 10 years older than me, so I was watching Red Dwarf when I was 8 years old, and now I'm like a super fan because I started watching it at such a young age. But I should definitely not have been watching it when I was 8 years old.
No, maybe you weren't going around doing any of the sayings, were you? Like calling anybody a smeghead or anything like that?
I definitely think I would have called someone a smughead, but I don't think I would have used any of the badder language, I don't think.
Yeah, gives the game away a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What did you think of the relationship then between... I suddenly thought like we should get back on track, as nice as this is talking about all random stuff. So the Stace are Arthur Bishop and Harry McKenna, which is Donald Sutherland's character. They're in quite a few scenes together early on.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Donald Sutherland in lots of things. I wondered how he hadn't aged since the Stallone film in 1989. He looked exactly the same as he did as Warden Drumgoole in that film. But I think Donald Sutherland's a very good actor, but he does tend to bounce off younger actors better. Like, obviously, Stallone was much younger than him in that film. And Donald Sutherland, I do quite rate, and he's never really bothered to do. He's never really been the star. He's always been the side thing in most of the movies that I've seen. I don't think I've ever seen him as front and center of a movie.
That's really interesting. He's happy to be a character actor, certainly since his heyday of, kind of 70s Don't Look Now, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But yeah, I hear that. It's almost like he's inviting the younger actors in and giving them their chance to shine, because he does always play that kind of mentor role, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was evil in is it Lock Up with Stallone? I think it's yeah. He was an evil character in that, but then he was probably just helping Stallone along at that point in Stallone's career. I would have thought.
Yeah, it did jar me a little bit. I'd totally forgotten he was in this. And obviously, a couple of days before, I'd never seen the original Mechanic either. So I thought, I'll dive in and I'll watch that. But so seeing him pop up, it's like, oh, great, Donald Sutherland. But then it jarred me a little bit because he plays virtually exactly the same role in the Italian Job remake, which of course stars the Stath. So it was a little bit jarring for a second. But I wonder if they got on during the making of that, and which is why he ended up being asked to be in this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because Mark Wahlberg's in the Italian. Is Mark Wahlberg in the Italian Job, or am I getting confused?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, he plays the Michael Caine, Charlie Croker role. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like he takes Mark Wahlberg under his wing pretty much like he is with the Stath in this movie. I think
Hmm. And
that they're
spoilers,
that sort of friend.
killed
Yeah,
off really early in both movies too.
yeah. I mean, it sort of shows how little care that Stath's got in this film to kill somebody who's not only his friend but is also in a wheelchair, and he doesn't think twice about doing that because it's his job.
Yeah, it's a really good scene, I have to say. I really like it. It's the next assassination scene, isn't it, within the movie? But it's kind of played that we don't know that to begin with. He calls him up, doesn't he? He's been tasked with taking him out by his boss, played by Tony Goldwyn, and he calls up Donald Sutherland's character, doesn't he, and says like, "Somebody's coming to get you. I'll guide you out of the building." And it's a really well played scene with him having to bump downstairs in his wheelchair, isn't it? And follow the State's advice until he gets to the parking lot, and then he steps out, doesn't he, with a gun on him. I thought it was a really cool scene.
Yes, seeing it, I drew comparisons with Wanted, where he's getting talked out of the building as well.
That's really interesting. I thought of Wanted whilst watching this as well. Which I'll come back. Remind me. We'll come back to that later when we get to that
Yeah,
part of the movie. But yeah, I thought that too, actually. And then the acting between them was really powerful, I thought. And I love what you said there about this idea of no hesitation from Stath's Bishop. There absolutely isn't. You're absolutely right. Like, I need to do this. Harry also gives him kind of permission, doesn't he? He says, like, oh, okay, I get it. And I'd rather it was you than anybody else, showing again the bond between them.
yeah. I mean, it's very much a this is my job and it doesn't. I'll do it no matter what sort of thing straight away.
Hmm. But it plays out for the rest of the movie, doesn't it? Not only is Steve his son, and it explains why he takes him under his wing, perhaps, but also you see the guilt. You do see, although he didn't hesitate in the moment, it stays with him throughout the movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you can tell he doesn't really want to look after his son to begin with because he knows what he's done. I mean, something that did really sort of grate on me watching this from a like a point of view where I'm trying to review it and criticize it is why somebody who was sort of just all about discretion and getting away with things would have kept that gun, which is literally the only thing that would have linked him to the murder. That just made no sense to me.
I'm so glad you said that. I mean, I had it written down in my notes as well. It's so annoying, isn't it? I mean, we're jumping to the end, but that's all right. Yeah, it's this bit is handled much better in the original. Yeah, in this remake here, Steve's sort of poking around the garage, isn't he, and finds the gun. It just makes no sense at all that he would have kept it.
Yeah, 100%. That was the worst. I mean, the first thing was obviously with the opening scene when the guy, because we haven't touched with the start of the film or anything. So when he was taken out in a pool, there's no reason why any of his bodyguards or his staff would have thought he'd been killed. So they
Mm.
wouldn't have sounded the alarm because the most obvious thing that would have happened to him is that he would have drowned. So the alarm being sounded and everything else just didn't really make any sense to me straight away because how would anybody have got past 30 bodyguards? And they would have thought to themselves that no one could get past them because that's the arrogance of that sort of role. You're looking after someone. There's no way someone's got past all of you to kill your boss. So that hit me straight away when I watched this.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I do think we're hitting upon a chief flaw of this movie in that the most exciting bits, or no, that's not right. The things I think I would have liked to see more are these really successfully planned assassination attempts. I would have liked to have seen more of those in the film rather than pretty much every single one going wrong and resulting in quite a atypical action scene, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, did he climb out of the pool? I can't remember how he got out of the pool at the start.
Yeah, yeah, he swims. Yeah, because he makes once he's drowned the guy, he makes it look like he's swimming, doesn't he, underneath him?
Yeah, that's
A
right. Yeah.
cool weekend to Bernie's moment, and then he like sneaks out, doesn't he? And he's in his like stealth wetsuit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
But you're right, like so that goes wrong, and there's a chase, which it's all well handled, and then basically every other assassination attempt from here on in goes wrong because I understand why they want to get the state involved in as many kick-ass action scenes as possible, but his skill set is to make things look like an accident. So I just would have liked to have seen a bit more of that.
And then it is Ben's character, Steve. Is that his name, Steve?
Yeah.
There's no way, no matter how tough or arrogant you were, there's no way you would have wanted to take on that big other assassin like face to. You would not have wanted to fight him face to face. Like I'm 6'5", but that guy was absolutely enormous, and Ben Foster was at least a foot smaller than him and probably half of his weight. There's no way in your head you would have thought, oh no, I'd rather fight this out than just poison him in his sleep, sort of thing.
No, you're right. It's absolutely true. So he meets the state at the funeral, doesn't he, for his dad, and then we get like the growing relationship. We get the montage. I quite like the little training montage. I think that works really well. And then he's sent out on his first mission, isn't he, to kill Burke?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he meets him at a gay bar, and he goes back to his place and like fake seduces him until the chance comes to kill him, and he's been told like do it clean, but he wants to get involved in a big fight, doesn't he? I think the choreography is awesome. It's really brutal.
Yeah, the fight scene is very, very brutal. I'd love to know how he passed that off as an accident, though.
Yeah, yeah, quite. Yeah, definitely. The concept has gone out the window there, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you're right. Like it makes no sense. Like for your first kill, go for somebody who you feel like you have a chance at winning against, not get the absolute shit kicked out of you and just about scrape out.
And another question, I didn't quite work out if that woman that he slept with early on in the film was actually his girlfriend or just a random woman in a bar.
Steve, well, that was the bit that reminded me of Wanted, actually. When she comes up to he's all beaten up, isn't he? And she's like, oh, I wish somebody would treat me like that. And it's that kind of dark wish fulfillment that Wanted portrays in the movie too. I thought was in this scene. I presume she was just a random at the bar.
But with the Jason Statham one I'm talking about.
Sorry, no, yeah, I was talking about Steve. So they go out and they have a quickie, don't they, in the alleyway?
Yeah, the one that goes back to a house with Jason Statham with I couldn't work out if she was meant to be his girlfriend or.
So
not.
I'll tell you what helps with that is having seen the original because they do the same thing in this that they do in the original, but it works and it's much clearer in the original. She's like a high class prostitute, basically.
Right, okay, that makes sense because no one's that attractive.
In the original, it is played off like he's returned to his girlfriend's place, and then he goes to leave, and he puts some money on the side, and you're like, okay, that makes because the way they've been talking was like a husband returning or a boyfriend returning, but just slightly off. It's really well played, actually. In this one, I don't think they handled it well, but clearly he is in some form of relationship with her. Like it's clearly the woman he keeps going back to see repeatedly, isn't it?
Yeah, that sort of clears it up for me. That I just couldn't work out that relationship, but a cold guy wouldn't make more sense.
Yeah, because he brings her the dog at the end, doesn't he? The dog they take from Burke after he's killed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a good chat about the Burke fight. It's really fun to watch, but maybe that's the key issue here that we'll keep coming back to, that things are done because they're exciting or they look good on screen, but it doesn't always necessarily serve the narrative successfully.
No. I mean, I suppose that target was picked just to check sort of Steve's credentials and if he could handle it, because I think maybe Statham thought he would mess it up anyway and try and take him on, and he wanted to see if he was able to finish the job, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because the next one that I can remember, correct me if I'm wrong, is when they have to kill the evangelical preacher,
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and naturally that goes wrong too. But they go to see him in the like at the top of like a high-rise building, don't they? And they've did
yeah,
concocted a plan where they're going to like poison him, but because they arrive and find out that he's taking heroin, I question mark ketamine, taking
yeah.
ketamine.
I wasn't sure which one, but yeah, it would have been one of those. I would have thought heroin or ketamine.
They realised it wouldn't work, doesn't it? So again, we get another sort of assassination suicide attempt gone wrong.
It wasn't it a nut that fell on the floor, but the floor was a carpet, so I don't like. You wouldn't unless they were looking at the vent. There's no way that would have like drew any attention to where they were. So
Like superhuman hearing.
yeah, definitely.
Another good action scene, but I just think I would have preferred a few of them where they would have gone right. Where these like suicide assassination attempts went right because he's meant to be the best there is at what he does. And according to this film, what he does is not very good at all.
Yes, I was just thinking the same things, and then, like none of his jobs have gone right. So he's more like a bumbling idiot than a top assassin because he just keeps getting almost caught in every job.
He does, yeah.
Did you read that the mugshot of the illegal arms dealer that he looks at on the computer was just a Photoshop on top of David Bowie's mugshot?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, yeah, they used David Bowie's mugshot from a drug-related arrest and just photoshopped the
Okay.
guy's head on top of it. I don't know what the purpose was, but
No, that's interesting, isn't it? Like why they would have selected that. When I did Sorcerer on Spider-Dan's podcast, there was the director had fallen out with the producer of the movie there, and he did something similar, but quite cheeky, in that when he had mugshots, he'd put the producers' faces up as the mugshots there. So that makes sense. He wants to get a little dig in against the producers. I wonder what somebody had against Bowie.
yeah, yeah. I just read it when I was looking at the random facts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
15 years in development this movie was, so you would have thought like they wanted to get it completely right. So I mean, for some reason, it took a long time to get this to fruition.
Mm. I wonder if I guess it's because it's the same producers as the original. So they're the people who are obviously driving, trying to get this remade. I mean, what do you feel about Simon West as the director and what he brings to it? Do you feel like he brings anything special? I mean,
Well, I looked at the writers and the directors, and they've all got pretty like big credentials, haven't they? I mean, they've done some big action films. So I think when I look through Simon West's filmography, I definitely like a lot of movies that he's made. So I think he probably was a good choice for this movie.
yeah, I mean, Con Air is the biggest thing, isn't it, that most people would know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting. Like just thinking about it to line up with what you were questioning there. I mean, the producers probably had an idea of what they wanted this film to be. They wanted to modernize it. And then this is what, Simon West's vision is as he's come in. I wonder whether those two things don't quite align. Because there are a couple of times where I think that the tone shifts or it isn't quite right. Ben Foster, as good as he is, and I think he's excellent in everything, almost feels like he's in a different movie a lot of the time.
yeah. I mean, I do really rate Ben Foster as well. I watched him in a movie called Alpha Dog that was
Hmm.
one of the most shocking movies I've ever seen. Like when the kid dies in that, spoiler, it like proper shocked me to my core. And Ben Foster was fantastic in that. I've seen him quite a lot of movies, and he does he's probably, without meaning it nasty to the Stave, he's probably too good an actor
Hmm.
to be pitted against Jason Statham, if I'm honest.
No, I hear you. He always brings like an intensity to screen. And I think that's what he does here. But it doesn't quite fit with this has quite a jaunty tone, I would say. It has quite a playful tone to it. But his performance and his character, the way he's delivering it, is quite a wired, intense person.
Yeah, definitely. I just think maybe he was sort of too. I can't think of anyone to replace him right now, but I just think maybe he was too good an actor to be in
Mm.
this sort of this action movie.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like perhaps he'd create this whole backstory and because I couldn't really work out why he cared that much. Like he seemed to have a really bad relationship with his dad. They didn't get on at all. So I didn't really understand why he was so invested at trying to kind of get into this world and use that as an avenue to understand to work out like what had happened to his dad. That I couldn't really fathom that either.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think he probably had all sorts of ideas of character building for the guy, but none of that was going to get to screen because they didn't have the time or they didn't have the budget to do that.
Yeah. What they did have the time and budget for was a really cool stunt off the top of that building after the evangelical priest assassination went wrong.
Yeah, and Ben Foster's scared of heights as well, apparently. So
Yeah,
it must have been very scary for him if he will have at least had to stand at the top of the building if he didn't do the stunts himself.
but there's a really cool behind the scenes video. It's quite short. You just find it on YouTube actually. When I put this up, I'll try and link it in the show notes, where both of them actually did it. They did it down a rapid descent, like free fall rappel. So we're on like one of those wires with a camera rig set above them. So Stath did it, as we know, quite happily. Yeah, of course, mate. I'll get up there and do that. No problem. But yeah, as you said, Ben Foster, fear of heights. But fair to him, he got there and did it.
My brother's done that out of a helicopter when I was in the area.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I can imagine it's a pretty scary to rappel forwards is a bloody scary thing to do. I would have thought.
Yeah, take some guts.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just a couple of wires, right? Like it's safe. I went to go ape with my family over the summer. Took my two boys, one's 11 and one's 4. And you're safe, but still, that first time you go down the zip line, part of you is like, there's just this small thing holding me up. That's like a little, go ape is nothing compared to a 33-foot or 33-story or out of a helicopter.
No, and plus you read about stunts go wrong in movies all the time. It's not unheard of for a stunt to go wrong in a movie, and I mean the insurance companies must pull their hair out when Tom Cruise makes a film. So
It's true. I mean, I guess, he's always the producer. So I guess, yeah, they still have to get the insurance. I don't know how they wango it on his movies at all.
I think I read that that's the reason he's the producer because nobody will insure him, but because he's involved with the film, he can do whatever he wants because it's his responsibility.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense, actually. And, explains his COVID rant, which became viral, didn't it? Went famous, that he feels like he's responsible for everything on set, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I think that's another great thing about the Stath that we have celebrated quite a bit on these episodes is that he will muck in and he will get involved and he'll do as much as he's allowed to do.
Which I think makes for better movies. I mean, if Harrison Ford could still be doing his own stunts in his 70s, then I think more actors should be prepared to do this for the cause. And if they're as well built and as fit as Jason Statham is, then there's no reason why you couldn't do your own stunts.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, isn't it? Because the job stunt people do is amazing. And I know Keanu Reeves is probably one of the best people for this. I heard a little snippet of him the other day actually saying like, no, I don't do my own stunts. The stunt people do them. I do, and I can't remember what phrase he used, like I do this and then they do the stunts. And what he was trying to do was trying to really celebrate what they bring to a film set. Because of course we know actually he does as much as he can do as well. But what he was trying to say was the real risky shit is what they do. But you're right, that level of realism is just so enhanced by knowing it's the actor willing to put themselves in some controlled harm's way, isn't it?
So yeah, because sometimes for people like me and you who watch films to review them, sometimes it's so easy to spot the stuntman in scenes sometimes, and it can really ruin a movie if you're looking out for it and you see like a completely different person, or they might have a bad wig on just to try and look like that person for that brief second. It can really put you off the movie.
Oh, it's true. It takes you out. And my whole podcast journey started because the wonderful Tony Farina got me on Comics in Motion to discuss some Serenity comics. And then we realized our love of Buffy as we were talking. So we started up Season's Greetings and we spoke about Buffy from the start. And some of those, I mean, Buffy is still my favorite show of all time, and it always will be because of what it meant to me watching it when it was on. But some of the very obvious stunt people in that show is painful to see now when you go back and watch it.
The worst one I know of is at the end of the first Back to the Future film. Now, I am a huge Back to the Future fan, probably one of the biggest in the world. I'm friends with the fellow who played the dad in the second and the third movie. And when he comes back from in the DeLorean at the very end, it's like an Asian guy or maybe a Pakistani guy with a wig on in the car, but you've got to pause it for that second to see him. But it's just like you couldn't even get like an old white guy to at least try and pass it off a bit more convincingly.
No, so it's the person playing Doc, is it?
Yeah, and someone dressed as a dog was in the Einstein scene as well. Apparently, it's someone dressed as a dog in the car driving the car. I've never been able to find that though.
I'd kind of get it if it was Michael J. Fox, because we know how busy he was, right? That he was doing, is it Family Ties he was doing during the day, and then he was filming Back to the Future at night, wasn't he? So I kind of get if he wasn't available. I wonder why
Yeah,
Christopher Lloyd wasn't. Interesting.
Yeah, just to drive a car because they were only hitting some bins. That's not a very dangerous thing to do. He just drives into some bins, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then it's the whole, Marty, you got to come with me. See, okay, fine. It's that bit.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving, though, the Stath drove the garbage truck in this movie as well, like towards the end. So in the final big action scene, they go after Tony Goldwyn's character, don't they? What is his name? It's really escaping me. The big bad boss.
Is it Dean? Why is Dean in my head? Is it Dean?
You are right, it's Dean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they team up to go after him. They realize that he set up Steve's dad, that he was actually manipulating Bishop into killing him, and so they go after him, don't they? And there's a car chase which ends with the Stath driving the forks of an American garbage truck into Dean's car. So again, there's another fun behind the scenes video of the Stath actually driving that garbage truck.
It's Simon West in the car as well.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, it's a little cameo of the director. He's the guy that they skewer with the garbage truck and car.
Nice. Again, yeah, another efficient action scene that is good.
We haven't touched on the bus scene yet. I'm trying to remember the bus scene.
So it's earlier on, isn't it? When why is his name escaping me? It is not it's David Leitch, isn't it? David Leitch is playing a Bourne style assassin that's brought in to get rid of Bishop.
Oh, I didn't know David Leitch was in it. That's brilliant. I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, it's him. So he comes in, doesn't he? A bit like Clive Owen in the first Bourne Identity. He's like called up the phone, and he comes in to take out Bishop, and he follows him, doesn't he? Well, like Bishop knows he's behind him, so he brings him into like a bus garage, doesn't he? And they have a big brawl on a bus.
Yeah, definitely. I did when I was writing the notes for this. I put that in my top 5 bus scenes because nobody's got a very good bus scene in it with the guy from Breaking Bad, and then you've got Shang-Chi has a very good bus scene, probably the only good scene in the movie. And then in The Specialist, if you've seen The Specialist with Stallone, he fights a load of like kids on the bus and throws them through the window. That's a really good bus scene as well.
I'd totally forgotten about that scene. Specialist is a fun movie as well. Yeah, that's a great shout out. I'd forgotten about that one.
Yeah, I watched that recently. I watched The Bourne Identity last night, actually. You just mentioned that, but I watched that last night.
Sadly, no buses in it.
No. Very good movie, though.
Very good movie. But this is the second Stath brawl on a bus after the first Transporter. Don't know if you remember that one.
No, I don't, actually. I need to revisit the Transporter movies. It's been a while.
So the really famous scene in the Transporter is when he gets oiled up.
Oh, yeah, I remember that scene.
So it's just before that. So it's in the same garage. So the fight starts in the bus and then moves out of the bus into the garage like hole. And then he tips it all over and oils up and puts on the bike cleats and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it starts in the bus, yeah.
Yeah, such a well choreographed scene, that oiled up scene. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? But yeah, this, again, another decent brawl, another bit of fisticuffs. Stath getting to show what he's capable of. And we know David Leitch is a master of stunt work himself.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And he's obviously got on to be very successful in his own right as a director too, hasn't he?
Yeah, right. It's Deadpool, isn't it?
Yeah, Atomic Blonde, Bullet Train.
I've not watched Bullet Train yet.
But he's second unit director here, so I think he's obviously in charge of all the action and the stunts. So him and Chad were sort of coming. Chad Stileski, he's gone on to do the John Wicks, were sort of coming through together, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, did you just say that David Leitch did Hobbs and Shaw? Did you? Is that who did Hobbs and Shaw?
He did,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a fan of that as well. Yeah.
But it's very clear. Like, I think David Leitch even more so than Chad Zaleski. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think David Leitch is a man after our tastes. I can see his influences in the films he's made, whereas Chad Zaleski seems to be kind of pushing the boundaries and pushing the genre on a bit more. Leitch seems to be kind of looking backwards and paying homage and enjoying the things that he grew up watching, much as we do when we talk about them.
So Chad sort of, I mean, John Wick films are some of my favourite movies. They're definitely good films, and I'm hoping he can. I mean, Keanu Reeves said he'll do them until nobody wants to see them, so I don't know whether they're going to carry on or not. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much, we don't want to delve too far into John Wick spoilers here.
yeah, no, I think they've said that no matter what they do, if they do carry on, then the only way it could ever finish is he's got to die. They reckon. So even if he hasn't, then he's got to die, sort of thing. That's what the
Hmm.
director and Keanu have both said. That that's the only way he'd ever be at peace.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense for that character.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you think about the ending of this movie when we've got, so Steve and Bishop have managed to kill Dean, and then they're driving away together in the car, and we have a very interesting, like, two-handed scene between them where Steve's sort of hinting he knows Bishop's killed his dad, and Bishop's acknowledging that, but not saying for sure that he did it. Obviously, Steve's found the gun by this point. What did you think about that, and then where the rest of it goes?
The first thing I thought was Steve had ample opportunity to just shoot Bishop
Hmm.
once he discovered that gun. I mean, he could have shot him in the back of the head at the jetty, it would have been all over. But for some reason, Steve thought that he wanted to sort of maybe have it out with him man to man, but he surely couldn't have thought that he had a chance against Bishop man to man. So that part of the movie didn't really make sense to me. If he wanted to kill him, he should have just shot him there and then when he had the chance, rather than drop all those hints and make it obvious to Bishop that he knew in the car.
Mm.
Because Bishop was always going to have some sort of contingency plan. He's not going to get outsmarted by someone that he's trained. He's always going to have been one step ahead of him. That was
Mm.
my thoughts at the end. I know
Yeah,
that Bishop was supposed to die at the end of the movie, but the director thought that people wouldn't like that, so changed it.
yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know how much you care about. How do you feel about spoilers?
No, I'm fine with spoilers, yeah.
So in the original Mechanic, he does die. The Bishop character does die.
Right, so that would make sense as to why they wanted to do it in this one.
Yeah, so the Steve character actually poisons him in the original, and I think there's a little hint that this one's going that way, and he's offering him the water. He's like, "Oh, here's a bottle of water
Ah,
for you, it's
okay.
fresh." So I think that's meant to be like a little nod to the original, and it would make sense, as you said, why they were going to kill him off here. Yeah, I don't know how different it would have played. I mean, we love the Stath, but he's not playing a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have wanted to. Yeah, yeah, I'm always rooting for him in a movie, even though he's obviously not the greatest of guys. But I mean, I wouldn't want. I don't think I would have wanted him to die. I mean, I've always thought there's certain people who, if they were made a bad guy in a movie, I'd probably start rooting for bad guys. And I've heard rumors of things coming up, and I'm like, I don't know how I'd take that because I'd want this guy to be winning because he's like my favorite actor. The first one was Fast and Furious. Keanu Reeves was supposed to be going to be the big bad in it, and I was thinking, well, if he was, I'd be quite happy for the rest of the Fast and Furious guys to just get taken out. And actually, and then he's also supposed to be rumored to be the baddie in the next National Treasure film. And again, I love Nicolas Cage, but I love Keanu Reeves more. So I wouldn't want to see them two come head to head either. It's just weird.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I guess probably that's why we get the ending we do. That's how the producers felt people would react, the public would react. They don't kill off Jason Statham, and of course I guess they wanted the door open for a sequel too.
Well, do you think the side role bit was added? Do you think they killed him in that garage scene and then decided to make the escape scene, or do you think it was planned all along?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it could have easily have been a reshoot, couldn't it, based on test audiences' reactions? Because it's
Yeah, we've
mostly
just changed
through,
our mind.
yeah, it's seen through CCTV, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting question, which I guess I couldn't see anything out there. I read the same as you did, that the original intention was to kill the character as it is in the original script and in the original movie. But maybe Stath had a word. I don't know. I mean, we know he doesn't mind a franchise movie, so perhaps he saw this as another opportunity to get another franchise under his belt.
Yeah, possibly. I've not got very good memories of the second one, so I'm gonna not as in I don't think it's a good film. I just don't remember. I only really remember the swimming pool scene, I think. So I think I need to watch that again as well.
Well, you will for when we discuss it.
Yeah, because that's coming up as well, isn't it? Yeah. I've forgotten
Yeah.
the movies I am doing with you, but I mean, I'll revisit them all before doing them anyway.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, you're right. The Stath does a little like roly poly, doesn't he, to get out of the car before it blows up. And I guess maybe I'm going to play devil's advocate and think about your previous comment about like what was Steve playing at? Why didn't he just shoot him? I hear all of that and I agree with you. But I guess maybe he was trying to set up Bishop's death to be like an accident in order to kind of inherit his job.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Maybe so.
But then, of course, he gets his comeuppance in the end, doesn't he? Because he goes back to Bishop's, he puts on a record, he goes to take his car, only to himself die in a fiery explosion.
Yeah, he was told not to touch the record, so it's his own fault, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. He was given that warning.
The whole movie was shot in 9 weeks. I know that.
Okay. Do you think it feels like a fast shoot?
No, I mean, I think all in all, it's a well-made movie. I think it's just that last scene. Just I thought after reading that he was supposed to die, that it just made me think that maybe that scene was reshot at the end. But
And it's such an interesting one to compare. So we'll bookend, we'll finish where we sort of started to compare to that original, because I think the original's opening scene is definitely better. Although this opening scene is good, but the original opening scene is better. And of course, I guess the bravery of 70s independent filmmaking meant we can kill off our two lead characters and we'll just accept that. So that arguably maybe that's in inverted commas better. I mean, I know we just discussed the fact we don't want to see the Stath die, but that kind of chance taking. But the middle part of the movie, and we've nitpicked it, but the middle part of this movie is much, much stronger, I feel, than the original, which is really quite meandering and goes down some really weird kind of blind alleys that doesn't really add up to very much. So yeah, they're an interesting comparison. It's an interesting remake comparison because there's sort of pros and cons to both movies.
yeah, and I think every studio is so hell bent on sequels now that they're just unwilling to kill off lead characters, even though it might make for a better film. They're always looking for the money making of the sequels and stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And I think probably, so where are we at? This is 2011, right? So we're into the MCU by this point. We're well into Fast and Furiouses, aren't we? So you're right. Like we're in that heavy franchise sequel era already.
Yeah, and every movie that's made now seems to, you just know there's going to be a sequel or they're going to be planning a sequel, and if it bombs, it won't happen. But they've always got a sequel in their heads to make more money from it.
Yeah, one's not enough. I mean, I guess it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's art, but it's art driven by commerce, isn't it? So you kind of understand those who are putting the ponying the money up, but you want the purity of the art too.
Yeah, I mean, Disney are hell bent on just ruining everything. I think Disney have run out of ideas for most things, and they're just remaking everything now. They can't even come up with original ideas anymore. So I think a lot of movie studios are running out of ideas.
I guess if people are going to turn up for all these live action remakes and they're going to make as much money as they are, they're going to keep doing them.
Yeah, the worst one is Moana. Moana isn't old enough to have a remake. It's just insane. They just know how popular The Rock is, and they're instantly trying to make more money off it.
Yeah. Although maybe they will rethink when they look at those Black Adam numbers.
Yeah, Black Adam. That was a terrible film. DC seemed to be really struggling, to be honest. DC just. Yeah. But though I've heard good and bad things about Blue Beetle. You just have to sort of watch these things for yourself.
Yeah, I'm really behind. I mean, I've not even seen Black Adam yet, if I'm honest. Between watching the Statham, watching this and watching that for the other shows I'm on. Some of the more modern stuff seems to have just gone by the wayside. And then I don't know how you feel. Sometimes if you don't see it within the zeitgeist period, it sort of slips back a bit further down the list.
Yeah, because I also forget about them if I don't sort of watch them when they come out. It might be months or maybe years before I even remember they exist, because it's that constant with movies, TV shows even more so. TV shows come out so quickly, and I won't watch a TV show episode by episode. I wait till it's finished, and then I watch the whole thing in as quick a time as possible, because my memory's awful. So I don't want to wait weeks in between episodes, because I'll just have forgot what the last episode was about, and then nothing will make sense to me. So I try and binge watch all the TV shows.
Yeah, fair enough. When's the Stath going to give us a limited series or a TV show? That'd be good.
Yeah, they've done a Transporter TV series, but I've not even bothered to check it out because I can't imagine it's very good.
No, was it Refueled? I did watch Refueled after finishing the trilogy, and that was
Is that the movie
yeah, the movie, yeah,
with the
with
bad guy
Ed,
from Deadpool in it, isn't it?
yeah, Ed Screen, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It was
I
fine,
think I've
but I
watched
mean,
that one.
yeah, I felt like the same as you. The TV show would just be even more diminishing returns. But I'd quite like to see him in like I don't know if you watch Boardwalk Empire, like like
Yeah,
a Peaky Blinders, or something of that type. To see him in a long form would be really interesting.
yeah. I mean, it can only be a matter of time. Everyone's doing TV shows. I mean, Stallone's TV show's fantastic. That
Oh
gangster one,
man,
I
Tulsa King,
absolutely love that.
yeah,
And
fantastic.
even Fubar with Arnie, it's very comical, but it's definitely enjoyable. Like so.
Mm, yeah. Need some of that sweet TV money. I mean, something like Blitz. Do you know what I mean? His character in that would sustain a TV show.
I absolutely love Blitz. A lot of people don't like that, but I think it's phenomenal. I think I'm so bad with names, but I think the bad guy in it is so sort of menacing.
It's Aidan
And then
Gillen,
you've
is
got,
the guy that was in Game
yeah,
of
yeah.
yeah.
And then you've got Paddy Considine, who's just fantastic in everything as a side character. I just thought it was such a brilliant film. I put it on for my wife, and my wife's very much into like true crime and murder programs, and that is a good sort of serial killer movie.
Hmm.
It's quite daunting and it's very violent as well.
No, I agree. I think it's massively underrated, that movie. One to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, Killer Elite, I think as well, because that is one of my favourites as well, because that's based on primarily true story about the SAS. So I was fascinated by that anyway, because with my army background and stuff, I just thought that was a good watch as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, but that's that period I spoke about earlier, where like perhaps he sort of started to become a bit overlooked because people were accusing him of being in kind of samey, similar level, kind of mid-range budget action thrillers, and I think he sort of got forgotten about for a little while. And it's at that period where I think perhaps we can do our best to champion them and to bring people back to those movies where perhaps they would have passed them over.
Yeah, because they got Robert De Niro and Killer Elite, didn't they? So they got some big names in that movie.
That's Clive Owen as well, isn't it? And that too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting period, I think, because then we get a couple of others like Hummingbird. It's called something else sometimes, isn't it? Redemption.
Yeah.
Or Straight Hummingbird.
Yeah, Redemption. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
He's trying something a bit different, isn't he? So, yeah, I'm looking.
Was that the period of Homefront as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Stath Super-fan.
Yeah, they're just. I just haven't seen Revolver. I just don't think was made for him, which is why it's not a good film. I don't even know what. I mean, I've listened to your podcast about 13, but I don't even remember now because my memory's that bad. I don't even remember the premise of 13. But when he tries to not be the Stath, I think that's when he falls down and his movies aren't that enjoyable. He is who he is. I mean, like I discovered that when you get a Cineworld Unlimited pass, you can put any name you want in, and I've been like Lee Christmas on my Cineworld card, and like I've used a few character names. I think I've had John Wick in the past, and you put any name you want on it. They don't even care. So I've been using movie stars' names on them for years.
Yeah, I love that, and I think what you said there is true. I think he has tried things out at certain points, but he's very happy in what he does, isn't he? He's very settled. There's that interview with him the other day where he's just, I do what I do and I love what I do and I'm okay with that. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, he's just, let's not try and turn him into a Shakespearean actor. Let's just let him do what he does best.
Yeah, and the way that his hits have been coming and the franchises that he's been involved with, he's certainly like riding high on that at the moment.
Yeah, and he certainly doesn't need the money, so he should just take the movies that suit him rather than just signing up to anything for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Which leads me definitely beautifully right into my last little point before I start to delve into Letterboxd and then get your final review. So I listened to the Spy Hard podcast about the mechanic. Not a podcast I listened to before, but I found it very enjoyable. And there's something I learned in that podcast that I hadn't read or heard anywhere else, was that when the States signed up to this, it was with this original script to the 70s version. So they sort of sold him on the premise of this being really dark and really gritty. And then by the time he turned up on set, it was this more 2011 kind of action thriller with, caperish, I suppose. But I've not heard him talk about it. So I'd be really fascinated to know how he feels about that massive change. And I wonder what you think about that and whether you think that original version would have held up quite as well.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I used to listen to Spyhouse podcasts. I'm quite behind now, but I listened to like 30 or 40 of them in a row. And I used to be out in the vans all the time, so I was always listening to podcasts. I went through hundreds and hundreds of episodes because I was just on the road for 8-9 hours a day. So I was always looking for new podcasts to listen to. But I mean, I think he still could have pulled off the gritty side of it. I don't think that would have been an issue because, I mean, the Homefront's quite gritty and Blitz is definitely really gritty. So, I mean, I'd be pretty pissed off if I was him if I'd signed up for this really gritty remake of a famous movie, and then they've just completely turned it around and changed the script. You'd be pretty annoyed.
But he still turned up, as we said. He's still put in a brilliant performance. I think this is a really strong one from him. I think he is performing as actors back in that era did, with that stillness, with those subtle facial expressions. We know they're the people that he looks back towards as his kind of icons of cinema, as his inspiration. So yeah, I think he was probably pissed off, but what I think is great is that it didn't affect the level that he gave in what is the finished product anyway.
Well, I think I've got a friend who's been autograph hunting for 30 years, and there's not really a celebrity you could name that he hasn't met, and he was telling me about when he got Jason Statham's autograph, and he sounds very much like a man of his word, because my friend's one of these people who waits outside hotels. He knows all the hotels where they all go and stuff like that. And Statham arrived with Rosie, his wife, and his daughter, or his son, I'm not sure which one he's got, but he said to my friend, he said, listen, he said, you can have my autograph, you can have a photo with me, but I've got to get the baby up to the room because Rosie's going mad. She's going to kill me. So he was dead down to earth about it. Obviously, his wife was giving him grief and he wasn't scared to admit it to a complete stranger. And he said, give me half an hour and meet me here. And he was exactly half an hour, and he come back down to sign autographs and take a photo with my mate as well. So I think he probably just stood by his word. He signed up for the movie, and if the writers have changed the movie, then he still has to be in it. He's contracted as well, I suppose. So,
yeah, and that tells you, I think, what a lovely little story. Thank you for sharing that. And that is the flavor I get of him from the press that I've seen and the interviews that he's given, and he just seems genuine and down to earth and just grateful for the life that he's living.
But the movie stars that haven't got time for the fans sort of grate on me more than anything in the world, because it's the fans that have made them who they are. Tom Cruise is probably one of the biggest stars out there, but he arrives to premieres an hour early to sign everybody's autograph. And then you've got people like Dwayne Johnson, who has made $800 million in a very, very short period of time, sort of 10, 15 years. And he's quite arrogant. He looks great when you see him on videos on Instagram, but when you meet him in person, he's quite arrogant and full of himself and doesn't really have time for people. So I think that a lot of celebrities forget why they're famous and who made them famous.
Yeah, that's a shame. But luckily, not our boy Stath.
No, definitely not. No.
All right, if you'll indulge me, I'll read a couple of letterbox reviews and then I'll get your
Yeah,
final word. All right, the first one is from Raul Dudaslin. He says, the Jason Statham movie needs to be a genre all on its own by now. This is a good one. Good action, decent tension, great Stath. I really don't think he gets enough appreciation for how charismatic and talented he is.
yeah, I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, Raul knows his stuff, right?
Then we go to the other end of the scale now, are we?
Not yet, but I'm going to have to be fair, aren't I? Tarantino says, sometimes you just want to watch a movie that has corny lines, some sweet shoot ups, and people getting their ass handed to them by a man beast. Statham films are always so reliable for that, and The Mechanic didn't let me down. It started off a little bit slow with the relationship building, and I mostly guessed the whole way through what was going to happen, but it was still kind of fun, so I'm not complaining. Tony Goldwyn is such a creeper, and he always plays a creep. Ben Foster gives me the shits too, but he was pretty good in this, and the Stath was standard. Not too shabby. Not quite as complimentary.
No.
Sonny Bunch says, there's something to be said for watching the original and the remake within a week or two of each other. It's not so much that the 2011 iteration has more or better action than its 1972 predecessor. It does. And it's not so much that the 1972 predecessor manages to be much more surprising, suspenseful. It is. It's more the pace of editing. Everything here is cut, cut, cut. Nothing has a chance to breathe, really. In the original, the only time we see the sort of shot length that is the average here comes when Bronson's character is about to pass out from overstimulation. Anyway, this is a tight 93, and Statham was undeniably the best generic action star of the 2010s. And Ben Foster's supporting turn is fun in his weird, twitchy way. There are worse ways to spend an evening.
We're getting on to the bad ones now.
Yes, I'm afraid so. I do agree with the editing. It's something I've become much more conscious of. It never bothered me at the time. And you spoke about Born Identity, and obviously that's one of those films which became kind of a leading light for the cut, cut, cut. And it works when it's the right movie and it's done for the right reasons. And it works in the Bourne movies, I think. But I recently watched The Matrix Resurrections. I missed it. One of those we were just speaking about earlier. Like I missed it in the cinema, and then I forgot about it, and it was at the back of a list. And then, so over the last few weeks, I've watched all of the Matrixes, and I think it's a really good example. You know, think of 1999, The Matrix, and how that changed action cinema for better or worse in people's opinions. For me, for better, for quite a significant amount of time. But the camera shots held, and we were allowed to see the action and what Keanu Reeves could do, and whereas Resurrections, cut, 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 because that's what filmmaking is. It's really interesting being to see that transition in filmmaking. And, you know, it's the same, one of the same two directors. It's not like it's somebody new coming in. So it's Lana coming back, not Lily, but Lana coming back. But now it needs to be cut, 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 and you can't really see the action properly. Whereas all those three earlier Matrixes, you were allowed to see everything. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different type of film that the new one to the original trilogy, 100%.
Yeah, I you know, the John Wicks do it right, don't they? Long takes. It's not that Keanu can't do it anymore because he does it in the John Wicks.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, last two. Movie Genius says action sequences are slightly above average. Jason Statham continues to be slightly above average at playing Jason Statham. After finishing the Mechanic remake 10 minutes ago and then typing the above sentences, my memory of watching this movie has already faded into oblivion. And I guess in a way, I kind of see what they're saying. It's a little bit forgettable, but it's, as you said, perfect movie. Like I've got 90 minutes to fill. I just want to watch something that's fun and breezy. And
It's also the problem with having multiples and sequels and trilogies, because if they're not amazing and stand out, you sort of just mix them all together into one thing, and you forget scenes from each, and you just put them all in together, and you just get confused what's from what. So, yeah, I do understand what he's saying, but you've just got to watch them for what they are. They're not masterpieces, but they're definitely very good action movies.
All right, last one. Lou Shoemaker says, let's get one thing out of the way. Ben Foster is too old to be in this movie. I usually welcome the unnerving intensity he brings to seemingly every role, but he feels out of place here as Statham's apprentice. Or maybe it's just a problem with the inherent structure of the movie. The Mechanic is based on the 1972 Charles Bronson movie of the same name, but without the original's grim 1970s cynicism, it feels like it's trying to set Foster up for a sequel or a spin-off or something and then just doesn't. This was a dud when I saw it in theatres, and it's a dud now. Anything that isn't lifted straight from the original film is painfully generic. Statham is typically calm, cool, and collected in this film, although he gets few genuine action scenes and spends most of the movie sitting around generic macho imagery. His bachelor pad covered in leather and wood furniture, a muscle car he keeps immaculately clean, etc. I get why someone thought this remake would be good for Statham, but he really isn't a Charles Bronson type. He's much more of a Jet Li type action star who benefits from intense choreography. Let the man dance. Not a
Lou
fan.
Shoemaker, you use him on most movies, don't you?
I do. I mean, he beat me to the punch because he clearly had gone on this journey that I'm going on, but he's logged it all on Letterboxd rather than, as far as I'm aware, put it out into the ether through podcasts.
Right, okay.
So I thought it'd be interesting to track how he feels alongside how I'm feeling as I go through this journey. I tend to be a bit more positive than him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a Ben Foster side story like spin-off would have worked, and I don't really think it was set up for that. I just think it was just to show how guilty I felt, the fact that he was training him in the first place, but I didn't see any of that sort of being put into motion.
No, I agree. But, each their own, right?
Yeah.
So we've heard from you some great little side stories. Thank you for that. You said you're going to bring in some bodyguard stories. You did that for us. What do you think of this film overall? Within the Stath's filmography, do you think this is a classic, worth catching, or for completists only?
Oh, I'm gonna go down the middle. I don't think it's a classic. Unfortunately, I mean, I'll definitely rewatch it again, and I'll revisit multiple times probably, but I just don't think it's in the classic. And it's just not good enough to be a classic. I don't think in comparison to some of his other movies.
The ones people have chosen to be classic so far tend to be where you can see like a quantum leap forward in terms of like his performance or of where you can see it's going to take his career in a particular direction. So I think I agree with you there. I think it's a fun watch. He's good in it. But if you skipped it, you're not missing out on like a major moment in his career.
No, and I also think you could watch The Mechanic too with not having seen this, and I don't think it would make any. I mean, I'm going to find that out soon, but I don't think you'd need to see the first one to watch the second one.
No, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And as you just said, we will find out in a few episodes' time.
Yeah.
I say a few episodes. I'm looking at the list now. 13 episodes' time. There's actually longer between these films than I thought.
Right. Okay. Am I on anything in between? I can't remember what movies are coming.
So it's only 5 years, but that kind of sums up the state, doesn't it? Is that, he needs at least 2 movies out a year, or if it's 2023, it's 4 movies out.
He definitely puts the effort in.
He certainly does. Yeah, never stops working. I mean, my brain likes to make lists. So I've already got lists and lists and lists of potential other people I could do for this show. But the rate he makes films, who knows when that would be? Because, he's almost making films at the rate that I'm recording podcasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're down for Mechanic, you're down for Killer Elite, Homefront, you're down for.
Oh, so they in between there before the second Mechanic. Oh,
yeah,
right, okay.
Mechanic Resurrection. So we've got you a few times coming up.
I think this gets 6.3 on IMDb, and I'm sort of on 6, 7 sort of score. I think that's probably fair to be honest.
That does feel fair, doesn't it? Yeah, I agree. Fantastic. Thank you, mate.
No
So
problem.
this will be out on the 2nd of October. We've discussed you coming up on future shows with me, but we've also discussed shows you've been on before. Have you got anything else lined up, or are you back to the Filmography exclusive at the moment?
I think I'm on the list for the MovieDrone, but they've now gone fortnightly as well, so I don't know. That might be a while down the line. I mean, I've got to be a Patreon for the VHS Strike Back, which I do usually do, but because of work and stuff like that, I've just not kept up with that. So, I mean, when I sign up back up to that, I'll obviously be able to submit movies. I have a list of movies to submit to them anyway. So I will ask to appear on that if I do submit movies to them.
Bro,
Do you not usually sum up whether he's kissed anyone, took his top off, and died in a movie?
I do, but do you know what? I've been forgetting it recently, so thank you for reminding me.
But he does all of those things, and well, he doesn't die, obviously, but
Yeah, you're right. He does. He hits all 4 quadrants, doesn't he? I had to change the die one because, of course, that just wasn't going to happen
yeah,
that often. So I changed it to kill or be killed. Because, let's face it, more often than not, he is actually going to kill somebody.
he half dies, I suppose.
Yeah, he does half die. It's true. There's been a couple of those as well, actually. But yeah, otherwise we do get full house, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still looking good. He's still got his death race, like very low percentage body fat going on.
Definitely working hard at his age to keep that body, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, right. Obviously, you can only
Yeah,
see my
I-
head. So I don't want to show off. You know what I mean? Like you can only see my head and my neck here. If I stand up, I don't want the Stath body to not show off.
See, I mean, like, I wasn't that good, but I looked like that at one point in the army. But, like, outside of the army, that sort of level of physical fitness is just impossible around a normal life. You can't have a family and train as hard as you'd have to train to look like that unless you are a multi-millionaire and you can have personal trainers and personal chefs cooking all the perfect food and everything else and giving you vitamins that maybe you shouldn't be taking legally and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I like a Twix too much. Forget it. I'm just owning the dad bod. It's all good.
I say this all the time. It's just it just wouldn't be enjoyable to never be able to eat any shite ever.
No. Life's too short, man. It's
Roast dinner on a Sunday. You've got to think whether you're allowed a roast dinner on a Sunday, and like you've got to have a roast dinner on Sunday.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you once more, mate, for coming on the show. And thank you everyone else for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the Stath's filmography. That was The Mechanic. Next up in a fortnight is Romeo and Juliet, featuring the return of the Comics Emotion Zone star-crossed lovers, Mike and Megan, followed by Blitz, featuring the return of the 20th Century Geek Scott Weatherly, for anyone that is watching along. I'm Jack's Musings, and that's JACS, and you can find me on Twitter where I'm most active. You can also contact the show directly on Twitter under the name Back to the Filmog. Make sure you use the hashtag Follow the Filmography. I'm also a proud member of the Comics Emotion family, a super place full of the world's greatest people, dedicated to bringing you podcasts on a variety of geeky topics. So, please make sure you take the time to search, subscribe, and rate our shows whenever and wherever you listen. Until next time, be excellent to each other, and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers. Cut.